On a sunny day, Eric stood face to face with two bullies. These boys thought they were tough just because their families were rich and powerful, but they were wrong about Eric. He was smart and quick, and in just a few moments, he had both bullies lying on the ground, defeated. But how did Eric become this way? Let's go back 3 months. It all started at dinner time. Eric accidentally dropped his fork. Such a small thing, but what happened next changed everything. His stepfather got angry, closed the door, and began hitting Eric. His mother saw everything but didn't stop it. As time went by, violence became normal in Eric's life. But inside him, anger was growing like a small fire, waiting to burst into flames. And burst it did. Eric started getting into fights at school. He would hurt his classmates when he got angry. Everyone became scared of him, and nobody tried to stop him. But after one really bad fight, the school principal had enough. Eric was kicked out of school. Eric's mother told him to talk to her friend Gunnar, who was a lawyer. Gunnar gave Eric his business card and said, "Call me if you need help." Eric just stared at the card, not knowing what to say. When Gunnar left, Eric's mother told him how disappointed she was. Then she surprised him. She had signed him up for Starburg, a school where only boys study and live. "This is your last chance," she told him. "Please don't make the same mistakes again." Eric promised to do better. He really wanted to finish school this time, without getting into any more trouble. Eric's new life at Starburg School began with hope. He looked different now, wearing a clean uniform and sporting a short haircut. On his first day, he met his roommate, Pierre, who was the top student in school. Pierre turned out to be really nice, and they became friends right away. At dinner time, Eric and Pierre went to eat together. There, they met Johan, who told Eric something important about the school. "Here," Johan explained, "it's not just about who you are as a person. It's about where you come from and how rich your family is." Just then, Johan pointed out two students at the far end of the table, Otto and Alan. They came from very rich and powerful families, and they were always picking on students whose families weren't wealthy. Being on the student council made them even more powerful. After dinner, Pierre asked Eric to go outside for a smoke. Eric remembered his promise to his mother about following the rules, so he said no at first. Johan warned them they'd get in big trouble if caught, but Pierre kept saying they wouldn't be caught. Finally, Eric gave in and went with Pierre. The next morning at breakfast, something scary happened. Otto and Alan came up to Eric saying they wanted to give him a welcome ceremony. But Eric could tell it wasn't going to be friendly. When Eric said no, Otto and Alan got really angry. But instead of hurting Eric, they went after Johan. After hurting Johan, Otto and Alan weren't finished. They turned their attention to Eric, ordering him to come to the student council room. There they pointed to a mess of dirty shoes on the floor and told Eric to clean them. But Eric wasn't going to be pushed around. He said no and walked away. This made Dallin angry. He turned to Otto and asked what they should do about Eric. Otto just smiled and said, "Let's wait for the right time." Eric went straight to Pierre and told him everything. Pierre's face got very serious as he listened. "You're asking for big trouble," Pierre warned. "Anyone who stands up to them gets badly hurt." But Eric just laughed. That night, Eric and Pierre sat together trying to think of ways to stop Otto and Dallin without fighting, but it seemed impossible. Most students just did what they were told, choosing to be humiliated rather than beaten up. The next morning, things got worse. Dallin bumped into Eric in the hallway. Instead of saying sorry, Dallin demanded that Eric apologize to him. Eric knew he hadn't done anything wrong and refused. This made Dallin so angry that he challenged Eric to a fight. As night came, Eric went to the meeting place. Pierre and Johan came too, just to be safe. On the way, Pierre kept warning Eric, "Be careful, Otto and Dallin never fight fair. They always bring friends to gang up on people." At first, Eric was ready to fight, but then he remembered what his mother had said about changing his ways and finishing school. This made him stop and think. Maybe there was a better way to handle this. Eric decided not to go to the fight. Back in his room, Pierre tried to make him feel better about his choice. The next day, Otto did something mean. He made a list of students who hadn't followed the student council's rules. Eric's name was at the very top. Then Otto, acting like a judge, gave Eric a harsh punishment. He had to dig a deep trench around the whole school for a month. Eric worked hard, sweating as he dug, but he couldn't finish his work on time. As punishment, he had to eat dinner alone in an empty hallway. But something special happened there. A cafeteria worker named Maria came to talk to him. As Eric told her his story, Maria smiled, thinking of her brother, who was just like Eric, someone who never gave in to bullies. After dinner, Maria came back. She told Eric to take care of himself, then surprised him with a soft kiss on the cheek and a warm hug. Both of them knew this was against school rules. Eric could be kicked out, and Maria could lose her job. When Christmas break came, Eric went home. His mother was happy to see him, but his stepfather was cold, as usual. He asked Eric about his punishments at school. When Eric explained that he had stood up to a rich student's son, his stepfather got angry. "You should respect people from noble families," he said. Then something terrible happened. Just like before, Eric's stepfather started hitting him. His mother saw everything but didn't help. Just like always, nothing had changed at home. When school started again, Eric couldn't wait to see Maria. That first night, they met under the moon and hugged each other tight, making up for all the time they were apart. Otto and Dalen were still causing trouble. They tried to play a mean trick on Eric by pouring dirty water on him while he slept, but their plan didn't work. Eric and Pierre woke up and cleaned everything quickly. Eric decided to teach them a lesson. That night, he snuck into Otto's room and poured dirty water on him while he was sleeping. The next morning in the dining hall, Eric put on quite a show. He walked around, pretending to follow a smell. Then he stopped right in front of Otto and said loudly, "Oh, so that's where the stinky smell is coming from." Everyone could hear him calling Otto, "Filthy Otto." Otto got so angry he started hitting Eric. Even though the beating was bad, Eric didn't fight back. He remembered his promise to his mother about staying out of trouble. The teachers and principal saw everything but just kept eating their breakfast like nothing was happening. Maria saw this and tried to stop Otto. She felt sad seeing Eric get hurt, but she was also proud that he didn't fight back. When Otto and Dalen saw they couldn't break Eric's spirit, they came up with a nastier plan. They decided to go after Pierre, Eric's best friend. At lunch, Otto called Pierre over, but Pierre said no, telling Otto he hadn't done anything wrong. Otto wouldn't give up. After school, he challenged Pierre to a fight and threatened to punish him badly if he refused. Otto and Dalen were being clever. They knew Eric would have to help if they hurt his best friend. They were sure that once Eric got involved in a fight, no one at school would dare stand up to their power again. That night, Pierre had to go face Otto and his gang. He knew he wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting to show he wasn't afraid. Even though Otto's group was bigger and stronger, Pierre told himself he had to be brave. But things went badly. Otto barely hit Pierre and he fell to the ground, not moving. Eric couldn't believe his eyes. His best friend was lying there, while Otto's gang treated it like some kind of game. By the time Eric got there, it was too late. All he could do was carry Pierre back to their room and take care of his injuries. After making sure Pierre was okay, Eric went to find Maria. He needed to tell someone how helpless and angry he felt. The next morning, Otto's gang sent more threats. Eric rushed back to check on Pierre, wanting to protect his friend. But when he got to their room, Pierre was gone. He had taken all his things, leaving just a letter on the bed. In the letter, Pierre wrote that Eric was his only real friend ever. He was sorry for leaving, but told Eric not to give up. "Keep fighting Otto and his gang," Pierre wrote. Without fear, Eric walked into the dining hall and faced Dalen. He said he would fight Otto in the arena and end their bullying once and for all. An hour later, in the arena, Eric stood alone. He faced two of Otto's strongest friends, Elaine and von Schennen. They were tough, but they only knew how to fight because their rich families protected them. They had no real skill. Eric was quick and smart, and in just moments, he had beaten both of them. They lay on the ground, defeated. Everyone went quiet. Otto couldn't believe his strongest fighters had lost. Eric walked toward Otto, strong and confident, ready for the real fight. Before his big fight with Otto, Eric went to find Maria in the kitchen. He needed her support now more than ever. But when he got there, he learned terrible news. Maria had been fired and had already left the school. The kitchen worker handed Eric one last thing: a letter from Maria. Just like Pierre, Maria had left him a goodbye letter. But then something bad happened. One of Otto's friends saw Eric get the letter and ran to tell Otto. Soon, Otto and his gang burst into Eric's room. They threw everything around, searching until they found Maria's letter. Otto read it out loud with an evil smile. Now he knew Eric's secret, that Eric and Maria had been in love. Otto knew he had won. He ran straight to the principal with the letter, proud to have proof that could get Eric kicked out of school. The principal didn't take long to decide. He called Eric in and told him he was expelled for breaking school rules by having a relationship with Maria. Eric stayed calm. He didn't fight back or get upset. He just asked for one thing, Maria's letter. But the principal said no and locked the letter in his drawer, like he was trying to lock away Eric's memories too. Now Eric had lost everything: his school, his best friend Pierre, and Maria. Eric followed Otto into the quiet forest. When he found him, Eric held a stick and stared at Otto with cold eyes, telling him to get on his knees. Otto, who always used his power to hurt others, suddenly looked scared. His hands shaking, he knelt down. In a panic, Otto pulled out $10,000 from his coat, trying to buy his safety. But Eric wouldn't take it. Otto broke down completely, crying, begging, and even getting sick from fear. Seeing Otto like this made Eric stop. He bent down, looked right into Otto's frightened eyes, and said he wouldn't kill him. Eric explained that he didn't want to hurt people, even those who had hurt him. Back at school, Eric was packing his things when he remembered Gunnar, a lawyer who once offered to help him. Eric called him and told him everything. Gunnar came to Starburg right away, ready to fight for what was right. They went to see the principal, who was relaxing with other teachers and didn't seem worried about Eric being there. Eric asked nicely to stay at school and get Maria's letter back, but the principal said no. That's when Gunnar stepped in. He warned the principal, either change his mind or Gunnar would tell everyone about how the school let rich students bully others. The principal had no choice. He gave in, agreeing to give back Maria's letter and shut down Otto's student council. This was huge. It meant no more bullying at Starburg. Eric worked hard at his studies, and when he graduated, everyone looked up to him. His mom was so proud of how he'd handled everything, even though his stepfather still criticized him. But Eric was stronger now. When his stepfather tried to hit him again, Eric stood up to him. He told his stepfather this would be the last time anyone used violence in their home. Eric made him leave, ending years of fear and pain. Later, Eric started building a new life. He met up with his close friend, who was going to study in Geneva. They promised to keep in touch and meet again someday. Eric felt free and hopeful, knowing good things were coming his way. This ending shows how Eric not only stood up to bullies at school, but also found the strength to stand up to his abusive stepfather.